It's time for the best coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
Yes, it does. Welcome to it. It's Tuesday. We got a lot to do over the next 60 minutes. Abbreviated week of shows with the holiday schedule. Tomorrow will be our last regular show of the week. Then you get special editions of Sports Wrap. All right, Sam Yarnell, we had a Monday Night Football game on Monday of all days. Ravens beat the Chargers. John Harbaugh's 3-0 against his brother. Better hope they don't meet in a big moment ever again. He's got a spell on him, I think. I mean, look, we knew the Ravens were better than the Chargers, and it was about what I thought it would be. We liked the over, right? We liked the over in this game, and we liked the Ravens minus the 2.5. Bing, bing! I mean, life is easy, man.
Yeah, we were both on the Ravens. I mean, I was on the under, and I mean, we'll just come out and say it. One of the worst beats you'll take on an under. This game just screamed the whole way through 55 minutes of this game. It was like under. Oh, are we going to get this middle? Because I also bet the over 48.5 live, and it could land exactly 49. Oh my gosh. And then next thing you know, the Chargers are scoring a garbage time touchdown that means nothing with 15 seconds on the clock after getting bailed out by the refs all the way down the field, which no one seemed to talk about because the score didn't really matter.
Exactly.
But there were 3 egregious penalties that gave the Chargers a total of 45 yards of offense for free without taking a second off the clock. Made no sense.
Somebody else had the over.
Again in that regard.
Somebody else had the over.
I was going to say, we might need to investigate that head referee's next door neighbor's dog walker's cousin, because I think they may have had a substantial wager on the over.
As Al Michaels would say, it was overwhelming. Lamar Jackson ran for 1. He threw for 2 more. 16 of 22 on the night for 177 yards. And Derrick Henry reminding all of us of how good he has been all season long. Another 140 yards for him on 24 carries in this game. And Justice Hill said, hey, don't forget about me, Sam Yarnell. Stop knocking on me, Sam Yarnell. Found the end zone. Look, game-winning score.
Yeah, listen. I said it last week.
Be nice.
I will say it. No. I'll say it again. This Ravens team, even in this game last night, has horrible personnel management issues. They, for whatever reason, as talented as they are, in the day and age of the NFL in 2024, they cannot figure out how to get their one truly amazingly explosive offensive player this year, their instant offense, on the field in key situations. Justice Hill runs for a long touchdown on a third down on a 3rd and short where he's getting the ball instead of Derrick Henry. And it was the 3rd time it had happened to that point in the night. This Ravens team will not be competitive in the playoffs if they do not use their best personnel in the most important moments of the game. We've seen it for 2 straight weeks now where they have not given Derrick Henry the ball in the utmost important situations in a game. One time it's worked out for them, one time it severely bit them. If you keep playing that game, John Harbaugh, what you're essentially going to start doing is playing the NFL equivalent of Russian roulette and figuring out what middling team you're going to lose to in the playoffs that's going to knock you out because you won't play your second best running back in the league on 3rd down when you need to or when you're up against the goal line trying to get it in.
It might be a situation where they're just simply being too smart or think they're being too smart or think they're being too cute, thinking that teams are going to stack the box against the run in those situations. And honestly, look, there's a part of me that says I'd rather put the ball in Lamar Jackson's hands and let him make a decision in those moments, which is going to give a defense something more to think about than Derrick Henry. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying there's more than one way to look at it.
I hear you. I think and I don't disagree with that point, right? Fundamentally, you got the two-time defending MVP. Like, it's Lamar Jackson. You can sure put the ball in his hands. Put Derrick Henry on the field. I mean, the guy's standing on the sideline. At least put him out there as a decoy. Make the defense think you're going to run it with him. What are we doing here? By the way, on the Justice Hill thing, and I hate to be this guy, but he ran for 55 yards on 4 carries, right? If you take away the one explosive play he had, the 51-yard rush, he runs for
it's a big run,
4 yards on 3 carries. That's what, 1.33 yards a carry?
Big run.
But yeah, let's keep giving him the ball in clutch situations, John Harbaugh.
Ran for a touchdown. I think the biggest headline from this game, by the way, was that Mike Vrabel ran into Urban Meyer, and Urban Meyer didn't know who Mike Vrabel was. To me, the bigger headline from the whole night was Mike Vrabel. And for people who didn't see this, go find it on social media. Mike Vrabel talking to the Manning brothers on the Manning cast. And he shared a story that is everything you need to know about Urban Meyer and why Urban Meyer failed miserably at just about everything NFL-wise. He walks up to Urban Meyer, says, "Hey, what's going on?" And Urban Meyer says, "Do I know you?" He says, "Yeah, I was an assistant coach under you, and I used to coach the Tennessee Titans." Oh my God.
An assistant coach for you like less than a decade ago,
yes.
Urban. What are we talking about? This was bonkers. It was like, I need some of whatever Urban Meyer's doing, because clearly it's working, and it's working well. It's working overtime.
Oh my God!
I will say, I thought of an interesting question to ask you, kind of as this game wore on, as it became apparent that the Ravens were going to win it. This isn't the end for the Chargers, right? We're not going to write them off, even though they didn't win this game and only made it a 1-score game in garbage time, right? I'm still in on the Chargers, I think.
They're going to be a playoff team. So,
yeah.
I mean, they get there. I don't know what they do when they get there. I'm still a little puzzled as to why this team isn't better offensively. That's one of the things I'm still trying to figure out. You've got a really, really good quarterback, a borderline great quarterback. Some people would already argue is a great quarterback in Justin Herbert. And when you go and look at it through 11 games, they're 243 points. It's kind of Like I expect more from this team offensively. So I want to see. I'm curious. We know how good they are defensively. There's no question there, although last night wasn't a great indicator. We're coming back. More football next. We welcome you back to this Tuesday edition of the show. College football. Our conversation with Bill Bender on everything you missed from the weekend in college football. He will join us also on tomorrow's show, an all-new SportsWrap, to talk about the college football playoff rankings, which will come out on Tuesday night. But Sam Yarnell made a note yesterday. He said to me when we were planning out the show, he said to me yesterday, "We got to talk about Malik Nabers." I said, "Don't worry. We'll talk about Malik Nabers on Tuesday, because it's weekend leftovers. And that's about all the Giants are good for at this point, is weekend leftovers. No cutlets in this weekend leftovers. No. We're not eating any cutlets. No, we're talking Malik Nabers, who said this after a Giants loss.
In the Giants end zone.
A Giants loss where they got absolutely mollywopped by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Here is Malik Nabers in the postgame.
How disappointed are you?
Very.
What are you most disappointed about?
I mean, it's over, man. I'm tired of going out there and losing. Like, it's just that. I mean, I don't know, bro. Go out there first, second quarter, don't get the ball, start getting targets at the end. I mean, can't do nothing. Start getting the ball when it's 30-0. What you want me to do?
Why in the first half are they not looking at you?
I don't know. Talk to Davis about that. Talk to Davis.
Yikes. Writing on the wall for the Giants. There might be another NFL team looking for a head coach and a GM in this offseason that plays at MetLife Stadium. Listen, Malik Nabers. Let me just say this before we get into the substance of what he had to say. This is the New York Giants we're talking about, right? You'd think there'd be some media training of some kind here for Malik Nabers, who comes out chomping on a piece of gum. And look, I mean no disrespect, but I do. I practically needed subtitles to understand his entire quote. I couldn't understand. It was talk to James. Tyler losing. I don't know what the guy's saying. Like he's mumbling. It's like it's borderline incoherent. Look, we get it. You're upset. You want the ball more. This guy's a rookie, and the Giants already have this to deal with. In a year where, and don't talk about leadership, and then sit there and say, oh, talk to Dabes and do this and do that, and what can you do better? And I just, the whole thing was very, as a Giants fan, it was very disconcerting to hear the tone and tenor of those comments from Malik Nabers, not to mention the fact that I think Brian Dable's gone at the end of the year. Are you gonna? Or if you're going the route of Shedeur Sanders, are you going with Brian Dable to be his head coach? Because look, we're going through this right now in Chicago with the Bears, right? They went and had the number 1 pick. They kept the previous regime's head coach. How's that working out with Caleb Williams and Matt Eberflus? A lot of people would say, meh. Are you going to do the same thing here if you're the Giants? Or if you're going to reset it with a new quarterback in this draft, are you resetting it with a new head coach as well?
I think it's a good question, and obviously that is where the Dion narrative comes into play.
Oh,
right?
no Dion! God, I don't want to see Dion.
With the Nabers thing, I think the funniest thing I saw about this is this guy is 12 games into his career, and he's already got the wide receiver 1 mentality down. He's already got the spewing narratives in the press. Just wait for the cryptic tweet. That cryptic tweet is going to go crazy. That thing is going to do absolute numbies on Twitter. I'll say this about the Malik Nabers thing. I famously, the analytics guy on the show, Malik Nabers, you are not allowed to say this. And again, this is my role, right? I come on the show. I say why stars who have said something clearly aren't allowed to say something based on their performance. Malik Nabers, you're averaging 2.7 yards of separation per NFL Next Gen stats per snap. The fact of the matter is you don't deserve the ball more when that's your average separation. Guys who that's comparable to, just so everyone has a little bit of a gauge, that's the same as Darius Slayton, his teammate. That's Tyler Lockett range, so a very old wide receiver in the league who is a guy who's been around for a very long time and an established veteran. Jonathan Mingo, who just got traded for a 4th-round pick to the Dallas Cowboys. Mike Gesicki, who's a tight end. These are the guys whose separation you're matching, Malik Nabers. Not to mention the cushion that you're getting is wide receiver 1 cushion from defenses, which to me still makes no sense. I know that you'll probably blame that on quarterback play. At the end of the day, separation has nothing to do with the quarterback, which is why that's the analytic that I chose to use. This guy is very much proving himself to be more fraudulent than we thought he was. And as much as he may be talented, not the most talented in the draft class, I fear, because I think that's already been established elsewhere. Look at last night. I'm looking at you, Lad McConkey, but even Keon Coleman, I would argue, has been more productive of a wide receiver than Malik Nabers thus far. I don't think that the Giants draft strategy under the Shane Dable regime has been wonderful by any stretch of the imagination. I think this is kind of the culmination of that.
Well,
and probably the culmination of them too.
Yeah, I think Nabers could be a solid NFL wide receiver. I think he has some athleticism.
Wide receiver 3, wide receiver 2.
I question if it's his speed getting off the line with some of what I've seen, and that's why he's not getting the separation. And I'm not sure if that's something you can teach. To me, that's something that you either got it or you don't. So that's one thing I would kind of question. But look, my biggest question is, what is the Giants' plan?
Yeah,
I want to know what
question.
the plan is going into this offseason. We know what you are under Brian Dable at this point. As much as we might want to say that, Daniel Jones' 1 year of success was an anomaly, well, maybe we have to look at Brian Dable the same way and say the whole thing was just an anomaly. And is he the guy to lead whoever your next quarterback is into the future? Because, like I said, you can look at that Chicago situation, and it's got warning signs everywhere. All right, we'll do some college football on the other side. Sam, we will see you later. We're coming back. More Sports Wrap on a Tuesday. We welcome you back to this Monday edition of the show. We got our fill of the NFL for now. More of that coming up in something to consider and odds and ends. It is a football Monday, and we got plenty to get into from the collegiate ranks. Sam Yarnell with us, as well as Bill Bender of the Sporting News, who hangs out. So, Bill, I feel like we're narrowing, the funnel is sort of narrowing, and we're starting to get more clarity as to where we're going to be here in a couple of weeks. When it comes time to figure out these final playoff standings. Start with Ohio State and Indiana. We all kind of thought this is what we got, and it's what we got. What did you make of what we saw between the Buckeyes and the Hoosiers?
Indiana's a good team. They're just not on Ohio State's level. Not yet. I'm not saying they can't get there with Kurt Cignetti, but it was pretty clear on both sides of the ball. Ohio State had the better players, had the better defense. They have the best defense in the country. So we were all scrambling to write our narrative about Indiana's playoff capability and whether or not they belong. Well, while we're doing that, Ole Miss lost. And then the SEC had some teams that lost afterwards. So to me, yeah, Indiana's a playoff team. I thought Kurt Cignetti was gracious in defeat for all the headlines he makes. And are they a national championship team? No. But this is a 12-team playoff now where you have playoff teams that are going to get in that aren't on the national championship caliber team's level. And that's what I saw on Saturday. All
right. So where does it all lead for Indiana now? You mentioned them. Are they, in your mind, are they still in? What's their path here?
They'll be a 10 or 11, maybe a 9 at best. And all they have to do is go 11-1, because that's still the name of the game. You go 11-1 in a power conference. We can go through the semantics of haven't played anybody and haven't beat anybody, but they're 11-1. And, the late touchdowns aside both ways, I still think it's a solid program. I just think Ohio State's cut above. Right now, when Ohio State plays like through the lulls that they have, they are a national championship team. And that's what Indiana ran into on Saturday on the road. Didn't like that he said he had not complaints, but worries about how they handled the noise, because it's only going to get louder as you play in those big time games.
Go ahead, Sam.
Bill, the Indiana thing continues to fascinate me, but I think when we talk about new coaches in new places, obviously Kalen DeBoer was one of the biggest names this season. They go into Norman, get their doors blown off by the Sooners. I mean, what have you seen out of this Alabama? We'll get to their playoff chances in a second, but what was the massive change from last year to this year with this Alabama team? Because a Saban Alabama team would never lose that kind of a conference game.
Not like that, anyway. Not where they look discombobulated on both sides of the ball.
Sam, Bill, let me interrupt for a second. Sam, you sound like the guy who's got a new girlfriend and is like, but everything that happens in this relationship, I'm going to compare it to my last relationship. That's kind of what you sound like.
And that's Jason Page. That is what every Alabama football fan sounds like right now. Yeah. So I think it's just
100%. I mean, we can do the playoff thing. They're not going to go. Unless there's some chaos there. I know they're on the outside looking in, and they get the preferential treatment of when they had one loss, who was the highest ranked one loss team, 2-loss, highest ranked 2-loss team. Of course, they're the highest ranked 3-loss team, but they're running out of time. And are we going to reward a team that has a Vanderbilt game? And then we make Tennessee's good. That's a tough road game. Well, there's no excuse for going down to Norman and losing like that. I don't care how inspired Oklahoma was. This is not a disciplined team. It's an inconsistent team, and it looks like a team that should be playing in the Citrus Bowl or the ReliaQuest Bowl instead of the college football playoff. I mean, that's reality, right?
Oh, my goodness. Jalen Milroe, less than 50% completions in this game. Is that the reason they lost? Is it as simple as we've got a top 4 quarterback in the country and he played like a bottom 20 quarterback in the country?
Well, I talked to Barrett Sallee yesterday, and he pointed out on that receiver screen, neither receiver even made an effort to break up the play. Where Oklahoma picks that play off, scores off that. And, Norman's a tough place to play. I think the Sooners were motivated. It was a reminder that I will say this about the SEC. This is one thing that is legit. You run into some tough road games there. Everywhere's tough to play. And I thought that was going to be the case early in the season. When you look at the winning percentage of every SEC school at home, whether it's Auburn or Florida or Oklahoma, so tough places to play. Does it excuse mediocrity? Not really, but I think Alabama's just running into, these are the games, like you said, and this will sound like talking about the ex-girlfriend too. Yeah, Saban would have had them prepared to play in that game. There's no doubt. But Saban's gone. You have to move on.
Give me a thought on Florida. And man, we're singing the praises of Lane Kiffin. It feels like 5 minutes ago, and now we're just saying, same Lane Kiffin found a way to lose a game they should win.
Too many turnovers. Jackson Dart apologized afterward. I like the accountability, but Florida's playing tough at home late in the season. Billy Napier. Nobody thought they were going to beat LSU and Ole Miss in back-to-back weeks, and now they're going to beat Florida State, probably get to a nice bowl game. So a reminder that it's okay to be patient, as hard as that is to do in college football. Ole Miss also out. I don't see a path in. I mean, they play Mississippi State. They'll be out of sight, out of mind. There is a chaos scenario we can talk through in the next segment if you want about Georgia. If Georgia loses to Georgia Tech and Texas A&M beats Texas, the SEC, where everything means more, will have a conference championship game between 2 3-loss teams. And the entire playoff picture of that conference would be a complete mess.
Bill, I wanted to get your thoughts big picture because, I don't know, it felt like week 6. I came on the show and was asking you, this Billy Napier, how hot is his seat going to get? This Scott Strickland guy, he's got a lot of problems down there in the swamp. And you were, to your credit, very much like, let's relax. We've got a lot of time in the season. What on earth did he do to turn this whole thing around in your mind?
DJ Lagway helps. You have a talented quarterback. And here's the thing, whether it's DJ Lagway or Dylan Raiola or Bryce Underwood at Michigan next year, it doesn't happen overnight. You get a talented quarterback, they got to play. What 5-star quarterback steps in and is a stud right away? DJ Lagway still has a long way to go in development, but I think the confidence that team's playing with, they've got talent at Florida, and Billy Napier, he's won football games. It just, when you're building a program, it used to be a 5-year timeline. Fans want 2 or 3 years now. And I think Billy Napier is actually on the correct timeline at Florida.
Sam had him on a fan boat being taken out into the Everglades and left for dead.
100%.
We got another segment with Bill to talk some college football. Arizona State. Bill was singing their praises last week. I think we found out why this weekend. Colorado? Well, you get what you get. And we got some Notre Dame to talk about with their matchup with Army at Yankee Stadium. Lots more sports wrap. Sports Wrap continues on the road from Mohegan Sun, Uncasville, Connecticut this week. Still feeling a little jet lag. I'm on Sam Yarnell time now. Love it. Bill, we went through this. You're East Coast too, right?
Yeah, Ohio's on the Eastern Standard Time and, early mornings. But, yeah, it is definitely East. Once you get into Indiana, then I think it splits.
All right. I always get confused. See, I always thought you were Central Time Zone until recently, and then I figured out, I think he's Eastern Time Zone as well. All right. Let's get back to the games from yesterday. Arizona State, you sung their praises last week. Thought they were playing some of the best football in the country. Wild finish with BYU. Can we stop storming the field before games are over? But Arizona State, talk about them.
Yeah, Cam Scatterbo, that downhill running game, he has 3 touchdowns. He's healthy. Sam Levitt's playing well. They've got Jordan Tyson on the outside. Anytime you have a dynamic quarterback, running back, receiver, or a dynamic running back receiver with an efficient quarterback, probably the better way to put it, you're going to be okay. And Kenny Dillingham continues to win football games, merits Coach of the Year consideration. And Arizona State, regardless of how early the fans get on the field, is a tough place to play. So if they take care of business against Arizona, they're going to be in the college football playoff or the Big 12 championship, maybe the playoff. And I think eventually you're going to see Boise State have that 4 seed this week. Eventually they'll put the Big 12 champ as the 4 seed. So we're dealing with some semantics there. 2 losses, 1 losses. I love how this Arizona State team is playing.
So, Bill, you've got BYU on the bubble right now in terms of the playoff. Is the Big 12 is the only way they get in, right? This is not a team that at this point is in competition for an at-large, right?
No, I don't think the Big 12 will get 2. I think the ACC could. I think SMU and Miami could squeeze in, and even Clemson. But right now, BYU on a 2-game slide. They need to take care of business against Houston at home this week. I think they will. They also need Iowa State to lose, and I think that could happen. Kansas State, pretty good rushing offense. Farmageddon, what a name for a rivalry. Should be a close game. So there's still some room for some Big 12 craziness. But at the end of it, I think we're going to get Iowa State and Arizona State in the Big 12 championship game.
Bill, what was your level of surprise with what took place in Kansas at Arrowhead Stadium with a Colorado team that we all thought we'd started to say, hey, they've turned the corner, they've made this move, now there's a shot for them, there's a path for them to the college football playoff. Did it get to their heads? Is it about learning how to take that next step? Where do we go with Colorado?
Yeah, Dion even talked about it. He said, yeah, I think he said smelled themselves a little bit. That's a common phrase for, got cocky on the not on the road at Arrowhead Stadium. Kansas just beat them. Running game, Devin Neal, hard. Kansas looks like the team that I thought they would look like all season the last 3 weeks. And it's a shame because they would be a dangerous Big 12 team, I think, at the next level with Lance Leopold and what they have there in Jalen Daniels. But you got to give credit to the Jayhawks there. And Colorado, ultimately will probably fall to like the Alamo Bowl. And I don't know if we'll see Shedeur or Travis Hunter play in that bowl game.
That's
I
wild.
doubt it. 0%. 0%. Is there something less? But I think the big question now for me is, as Colorado plays Oklahoma State, is which one of those coaches will be back next season? Dion, Gundy, both, neither? It's a really interesting narrative.
Bill, you mentioned there for a second, and we've kind of been talking about this whole ACC thing. It feels like for like 4 weeks when people kind of started to give Arizona State a chance. And you mentioned, hey, we're talking about this as a 2-team conference, but Arizona State, they have a very open back door here. Now that kind of all of this ACC thing has come to fruition. I'm sorry, not the Big 12, with the ACC, when we had SMU, Clemson, and Miami, and Cam Ward obviously lighting the world on fire, has kind of been in Heisman contention, but then they teeter and they're winning all these games that they shouldn't, and they finally pick up that loss. I'm curious, on the whole, when we talk about conference realignment, good or bad, what the ACC has done in terms of their argument for the college football playoff this year?
Good. You picked, I would say good. SMU's probably in right now as an at-large, and they're undefeated in conference play. Their loss is not that bad of a loss, and Rhett Lashley's done a fantastic job. Miami's back, and that's good for business. Miami, a childhood team for me. We've all waited for the U to get back. I think Cam Ward playing the way that he does. To me, Miami being in the playoff makes more noise than Clemson being in the playoff. It just does. It's the Hurricanes, man. And I think they're going to be in that ACC championship game against SMU. Both teams will have a case. That ACC championship game, 240-point offense, is going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Before I get you out of here, got to talk about Notre Dame, obviously, at Yankee Stadium, taking down Army, doing what you're supposed to do if you are this Irish team, and you talked about it at great length, that they're playing some of the best football in the country right now. You got to like the trajectory here for Notre Dame.
Yeah, what a world we live in where the Northern Illinois loss, which we keep bringing up, is not that big a deal to me anymore because we got to look at how they're playing right now. They have arguably the best defense in the country. It's right there with Ohio State. They have an offense that is overpowering in the running game. Jeremiah Love's starting to be a star in this team. And the only weakness they really have is the kicking game. So those field goals will haunt you in a close game. I do think they're going to have a close one with USC this weekend. Lincoln Riley, the Trojans playing spoiler, haven't lost at home this year. That's going to be a good game. Notre Dame gets through. I think if they lose, they're still in. If they win, home game, like their setup right now, and we got a long way to go. Right now, the two best teams in the country are Ohio State and Notre Dame, and they played a really awesome game last year, and the Central Ohio kid that went to a Catholic school in me, he really wants to see a rematch.
Bill Bender, always appreciate it. Check out his work, The Sporting News. He's going to join us on Wednesday's show as well in this abbreviated week of shows with the holiday. We'll talk about the bracket with him then. Thanks, Bill.
Hey, thank you.
We're coming back. We welcome you back to this Tuesday edition of Sports Wrap. Odds and ends coming up in 10 minutes to wrap things up. Day 2 here at Mohegan Sun Resort and Casino. We will be with you tomorrow for Sports Wrap, and then we will have basically best of shows for Thanksgiving and Black Friday, given the fact that there's so much sports on and so much football on. You're not watching us anyway. Whatever, come on. If you are watching us, thank you. We appreciate it. But I know what's on Thursday and Friday. So we'll be back on Monday with all new shows. But we'll be here Thursday and Friday with special editions of Sports Wrap. You'll have to tune in to see what is on those. All right, something to consider. And I wanted to address this one on my own today. We have to stop pretending, and we have to stop making a boogeyman, or in this case, boogie woman, out of the issue of transgender athletes in sports. We have to stop acting like this is happening everywhere. We have to stop pretending that every single sport around the country has biologically born males now identifying as female that are trucking your female daughter in a soccer game, or trucking your female daughter in a flag football game, or on a basketball court, or in an ice rink, wherever it may be. We have to stop pretending about this. I'm going to give you some facts here, okay? There's a study that was released recently, and there are varying studies to different degrees about this topic of how many transgender athletes there are in the sports landscape today. You know what the number is? I'm going to give it to you. 40. Some say maybe 60. I've seen it as high as 100. Let's split the baby. Let's say 65. Do you know how many people live in our country? Do you know how many people play sports in our country? 65. We are taking the most marginalized, one of the most marginalized groups in America, and then we're taking a subsection, a minute subsection at that, of that marginalized group, and we are making them the villains of all villains. And why? For political expediency, of course. We need something in the culture wars to go after. Now, I'm going to tell you something. I have stayed away largely from the topic of transgender athletes, biologically born males, because let's be honest, nobody cares if a biologically born female, now identifying as male, plays in a male sport, because we're not threatened by it, of course. But let's be honest. Let's have an honest conversation about the fact that a lot of us are just uncomfortable. A lot of us don't know how to address the issue. And I think a lot of this is fear-based. And a lot of that fear is being stoked by certain political factions in this country who want you to be scared. They want you to be scared. And not to go off on a complete political tangent, but it's be scared of the immigrant. Be scared of the homeless man. Be scared of the transgender male going into your bathrooms. Let's also stop pretending that some of this doesn't have to do with body shame in America. Around certain parts of the world, around many parts of the world, being naked is no big deal. The male and female anatomy is a beautiful thing to some people around the world. I'm not saying that necessarily fits me. I'm just telling you from a world perspective how some people view anatomy, how some people view the naked body. And in America, there's still some shame. It's Catholic guilt. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. And some of that, I think, plays into this conversation about transgender, males or transgender females being in female bathrooms. Oh, my goodness. They're going after your daughter. Again, fear-based. Now, I will be the first one to sit here and tell you, there is inherent danger in certain sports in having biological males competing against, or biological males now identifying as transgender females, playing against biological females. Boxing, UFC, maybe in hockey. I mean, there are certain sports, and we could sit here and nitpick through all of the ones that are and aren't. Is there a danger to your daughter playing golf with somebody? I've played golf with a transgender female, somebody that I was born, identified as biologically male, and now identifies as female. I've played with somebody in that situation. I've played golf with somebody in that situation, and it was like playing golf with anybody else. I've got news for you. There are certain instances, and there is no simple answer to this, and that's I think the most important thing I want to say in the final minute on this topic is there are no simple answers. There is no one size fits all to the topic of how we address transgender athletes. I think it has to be on a case-by-case basis, and I think it has to be heavily studied and not just boogeyman or scapegoated or taken into a culture war and taken to that level. I think it's something that needs to be studied and further examined so that we can figure out the best answer for all involved instead of rushing to judgments the way we are now. The San Jose State volleyball case, another great example of that. We're coming back. All right, just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Tuesday. Before we do, a thank you to Mohegan Sun. Always hospitable. I've been coming here for years. I've been doing broadcasts here for years. Gosh, 16 years? 17 years? Never a bad thing to say about this place. The gaming is fantastic. Slot machines, your favorite games. It is a massive facility. Lots of places to walk around, lots of food options. Go check out the Mohegan Sun FanDuel Sportsbook. UFC, 310 this weekend going on there. They have fantastic seating, huge screens. Obviously, all your favorite betting options as well, courtesy of FanDuel here at Mohegan Sun. Go and check that out. You got a bachelor party you want to do? You're in the Northeast? Come and check out Mohegan Sun. It is fantastic. SportsWrap with Jason Page podcast, available on all your favorite podcasting platforms, including Spotify, YouTube podcasts, Apple podcasts, iHeartRadio, Odyssey, TuneIn, Amazon, you name it, we are on all of them. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page Substack is also available. Go and check that out today. Betting insider picks, clips from the show, extended conversations, and a whole bunch more. All right, ladies and gentlemen, without any further delay, time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends. Dan Hurley lost his mind on Monday night, and it cost UConn potentially a game they fought hard in. Hurley losing it in a 92-92 game in overtime at the Maui Invitational against Memphis, where UConn would eventually go on to lose after forcing the game to overtime with a solo ball, 3-point shot with about a second left in that second half to send that game to overtime. Then in the overtime, a call goes against UConn. Let's be honest about it. It was a bad call, and Dan Hurley had every reason to be upset. But you cannot constantly do these histrionics and theatrics and think that after an entire game, an official's just going to say, we're going to let it slide. He got teed up, 2 free throws, 2 technical free throws. A 92-92 game turns into a 96-92 game, and UConn winds up on the wrong end of the final score at the Maui Invitational, falling to Penny Hardaway's Memphis Tigers. This is what you get with Dan Hurley. This is the shtick. Here's Hurley postgame.
But I had a lot of issues with what went on out there in the game. That over the back call at that point of the game, there was no attempt to block out. There was a player on Memphis that made a half-ass effort to rebound that basketball, and Liam McNeely high-pointed that rebound. For that call to be made at that point of the game was a complete joke, all right? And then for me, I don't know what happened. I might have lost my balance by the absurdity of the call, or maybe I tripped. But if I made that call at that point, I would have ignored the fact that I was on my back.
Or ignored the fact that you were acting like a jackass, which you are wont to do. And look, I get it. You win back-to-back titles, you're going to get a lot more leeway. And maybe you expect to get certain calls or a certain amount of respect regardless of the antics you throw out there on the court. But the fact of the matter is, Dan Hurley should have apologized to his team. He cost him 2 points in a 92-92 game. UConn goes on to lose. Odds and ends. Boy, oh boy. Man, can the Knicks score. Whew. They hung up 145, I think, on Denver. The world champions from just a couple of years ago in the NBA. And I said this on, it might have been yesterday's show. I can't get used to the Knicks scoring this much. I mean, they look like an offensive juggernaut out there. Now, the other side of that is they have not been as good defensively as Tom Thibodeau would probably prefer. But the story in this game to me, besides the fact the Knicks shoot 60% from the field in a blowout win in Denver against the Nuggets, is what is going on with the Nuggets. Mike Malone, it feels like every time I see a post-game press conference where the Nuggets lose, Mike Malone is calling his team out. Inevitably, Mike Malone always calling his team out. And it doesn't seem to be working. They don't seem to be responding. The message doesn't seem to be getting through. And it isn't as if there isn't precedent in this league for a guy to win a championship and then a year or two later be sent out to pasture by a team. The Nuggets are 9-7 out of the gate. Yes, they've had injury issues. Every team in this league has injury issues. I mean, the Boston Celtics were missing Kristaps Porzingis until last night. By the way, welcome back, Kristaps. And at the end of the day, you have to start asking yourself the question, maybe this just is what the Nuggets are. Maybe they won a championship in just the perfect season. Maybe everything just aligned right and that group in that year was meant to win a championship. But a lot of us thought this could be one of several, or one of at least 1 or 2 or 3 for this Nuggets group. That hasn't been the case at all. This Denver team just cannot seem to get on the same page. Guys got paid. Guys got their rings. Guys don't look hungry. That's how we wrap up this Tuesday edition of the show. Thanks again to Bill Bender. We replayed our conversation with him on college football earlier in the show. He'll be with us again on Wednesday's show. Talk about the playoff bracket. Thank you, Sam Yarnell. Thanks to you for watching. Thanks, Mohegan Sun. We'll see you back here for a Wednesday Sports Wrap.